Hey folks, today we're going to talk about Nietzsche and morality. First question, is it right to claim Nietzsche institutes a system of morality? What is meant by this question is that a lot of people assume that Nietzsche just is a complete relativist. He thinks that everything should be relative to the individual. I guess you could say that Nietzsche is a relativist in some extent. He does think morality is relative to your role in society. You can think of the Indian caste system to some extent. But to say that there is a Ten Commandments type system in any shape or form, that is not the case. There is no moral code in his system for every single human being, besides the goal being the Übermensch. Every human should strive to bring the Übermensch into being, but he always seems to allow for the fact that people can only do what they are born to do. So even though that should be the goal, he understands that it won't be, and that's okay to some extent with Nietzsche. So question number 2, does this system, if it exists, possess any chief aim beyond self-gratification? Another misconstruing of Nietzsche that can occur is simply saying that Nietzsche says, please yourself, please all of your baser instincts, become this Borgia-esque character, have a harem, do drugs, just be this grotesque person who indulges every whim. That again is just kind of shortchanging the nuance of his thought. Number 3, is this morality institutable in a utilitarian sense, or is this morality that Nietzsche preaches coded into specific persons? This goes back to question 1. The final aim is to bring about the Übermensch, but not everybody is cut out to do the self-sacrifice that is required to do that. So, this question is simply saying, is there an ability of humankind to come up with laws and demand that everyone for all time keep that one set of laws? Or do the laws have to fluctuate with human evolution, fluctuate with different individuals, environments, things of that nature? So is it possible to create one set of laws forever and ever, amen, or do people have to adapt constantly? So we're going to take this backwards and discuss question number 3 first. The way Nietzsche explains this in Twilight of the Idols, chapter 6, aphorism 1, the worthy Italian thought his diet was the cause of his long life, whereas the precondition for a long life, the extraordinary slowness of his metabolism, the consumption of so little, was the cause of his slender diet. He was not free to eat little or much. His frugality was not a matter of free will. He became sick when he ate more. But whoever is not a carp not only does well to eat properly, but needs to. So even Nietzsche admits that people have a certain being to themselves, in the same way that Christians think of the non-regenerate person having a certain set of appetites that must be fulfilled, and the Christian person having a certain set of appetites that must be fulfilled. He thinks of it in the same way. Morality is like your food. Certain people, from Nietzsche's perspective, required certain food. In the 19th century, there was this idea that climate affected the way people were. They connected Darwinian ideas to everything. So if you lived in a cold climate, you might need to eat this thick soup with boiled lamb in it. And that's just a ridiculous example. But depending upon who you were, where you were from, what your ancestors ate and what your ancestors did, all of that determined what you could eat. In the same way, morality was determined is determined in Nietzsche's mind by who you are. It's not something you choose. Again, it's not free will. If a slave tries to live as a master, he will become sick. If a master attempts to live as a slave and live in a Christian style of virtue ethics, which Nietzsche would call slave values, sadly, that person would become sick because they're not cut out for that kind of life. If you're a slave, then great, live your Christian moral life. But if you're a master, in that case, a life more akin to that of Borgia, the Renaissance Pope, might be more adequate. So going back to question 2, does this system, if it exists, possess any chief aims beyond self-gratification? This is from Thus Spoke Zarathustra, pages 3 through 5. Man is a rope tied between beast and overman. Right away you can see the Darwinian idea. A rope over an abyss. What is great in man is that he is a bridge and not an end. What can be loved in man is that he is an overture and a going under. So yet again, to say that the end is to put the slaves down or bring up the higher men, that's still an oversimplification. The slaves and the higher men, the masters, are still subservient to this ideal of the Übermensch. They are man, they are a rope, and their goal is to get from beast to overman, whether you are a master or a slave. Ecce homo, to become who one is, to become human, helps people know, this is one of Nietzsche's books that I'm referring to, helps people know whether they are a slave or a master. And then once you know what moral code appeals to your specific preconditions, live in line with that, is what Nietzschean thought would say. Question number 1. Is it right to claim Nietzsche institutes a system of morality? So this is a lot of text, but it's very important. I say unto you, one must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. I say unto you, you still have chaos in yourselves. Alas, the time is coming when man will no longer give birth to a star. Alas, the time of the most despicable man is coming, he that is no longer able to despise himself. Behold, I show you the last man. What is love? What is creation? What is longing? What is a star? Thus asks the last man, and blinks. The earth has become small, and on it hops the last man who makes everything small. His race is as ineradicable as the flea. The last man lives longest. We have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. They have left the regions where it was hard to live, for one needs warmth. One still loves one's neighbor and rubs against him, for one needs warmth. One still works, for work is a form of entertainment, but one is careful lest the entertainment be too harrowing. One no longer becomes poor or rich. Both require too much exertion. Who still wants to rule? Who obey? Both require too much exertion. No shepherd and one herd. Everybody wants the same. Everybody is the same. Whoever feels different goes voluntarily into a madhouse. This string of questions right here just illustrates the dynamic of Nietzsche's morality. Nietzsche has this strange hot, lukewarm, cold spectrum. He would prefer that you want to rule or that you obey. Not that you rule and feel sorry for being a ruler, or that you obey and act impotent and freaked out that you have to obey. Accept your lot as an obedient serf. Accept your lot as a ruler. But the last men don't do either. They want everybody to be a member of the herd. They don't want any shepherd because they would throw mud at him and be jealous of him, whoever he is. And And there's many reasons for that. Maybe the shepherd demands things of them. So really interesting. All in all, the answer to the first question, is it right to claim Nietzsche institutes a system of morality? Yes, but it's nuanced depending upon who you are. Number two, does this system, if it exists, possess any chief aims beyond self-gratification? Yes, the institution of the Übermensch. Number three, is this morality institutable in a utilitarian sense, or is it coded into specific persons? This question number three is basically the tag onto the end of everything I've said. Yes, there is an instituted morality, but Nietzsche tends to negate himself left and right, and he negates himself in number three by saying, yes, there should be morality of slaves and masters, but everyone is coded in a specific way, so it probably will not turn out the way I've described it. The only way that can continue to change is if sacrifice begins to happen, so that we get beyond the people who can't do this. It's a chief aim. And we'll begin to touch on that in the next pre-lecture.